Hey there, I'm Maya.
Nice. You're back.
Hey there, I'm Simone. It's nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hey, I'm Maya. But... Hey there, Briggs. I'm Maya.
Being able to tell moral stories without like necessarily like burdening them with the idea, like the what a high demand religion requires of you, and also just like what it requires of someone who might be on the spectrum, like I am, and like two of my kids are. And so, anyways, with that being said, I am asking this because, well, I'm talking about this because I want to sort of have some sort of cosmology that makes sense for my children. So, one of the things is that there's like three gods, and it's broadly based off of logic, instinct, and psyche. And the idea behind it is that those three gods are these like they are like what make up sentience or consciousness, and that there are even ways that you can apply that to animal life, human life, and even synthetic intelligence to know whether or not that thing feels, or whether or not that thing, like what capabilities that thing has, or even what rights it gets. And I want to start there and talk about that.
I love this. Building a world for your kids where they can explore morality on their own terms is such a beautiful goal. Sounds like you've put a lot of thought into the foundation. I'm especially curious about how these three gods, logic, instinct, and psyche, interact. Do they ever disagree, or are they more like complementary pieces of a single puzzle?
That's a good question. So they certainly disagree, and that's part of their harmony. In effect, it's a glorified, like, it's like a more complex idea around like yin and yang, but in this case, it's certainly, I don't know. It's just, yeah. There's a yin and yang to it. There's a flow. There's rock, paper, scissors, but ultimately, the idea is that they can also agree with each other while disagreeing with one other. So maybe psyche and instinct can agree on something, and logic and psyche can agree on something, but the other one disagrees. And that can happen really in any combination. And that's also a part of the process, both not only in how the universe is formed, but how we think about ourselves and our own morality, and like what the best decisions are to make. And so, with that being said, I am like, yeah. I mean, I guess that basically answers your question. I don't need to elaborate on it more necessarily than that.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a mental ecosystem where the balance shifts depending on the situation. I'm curious how this
and like
manifests for the people living in your world. Do they actually work?
One of the things that I was actually gonna bring up too is this idea that like psychogeography exists, but it's like, because I'm not like a huge map person, but I am a huge like location or environment person. And there's this idea of like psychology being something that is made like it almost shapes your environment. I don't know how that would work exactly, but yeah.
That is a fascinating concept. Imagine a world where the landscape actually shifts or changes based on the collective mood or the subconscious of the people in it. Maybe a forest becomes dense and thorny and there's tension in the air, or a city's architecture literally bends to reflect the psyche of its inhabitants. How would someone navigate a world that's a mirror of their own mind?
Or not even necessarily just a mirror of your own mind, but even a contention of your own mind. Like the idea that maybe that the world does create challenges for you, like intentionally, and that this just makes it what is a karmic, like maybe some sort of karmic belief made manifest in the physical world, in the physical realm. But how those things connect is difficult. So Planescape Torment or Spelljammers might suit itself to this idea, or maybe not. But the thing is that I want this world to feel as coherent as possible because it's for kids, but it's still, you know. So some ideas I don't want to get too caught up in the like poetry, like maybe psychogeography is just a bad idea, and that's okay too.
I don't think it's a bad idea at all. It actually anchors the morality part you mentioned earlier. The world responds to your internal state, and being good isn't about following a rule book from God. It's about how your presence affects the world around you. It makes the consequences of their actions visible and immediate. Does that feel like it aligns with the balance you're trying to strike for them?
Yeah, so with that being said, aligned with these gods, it's sort of like the Triforce, where like these gods aren't necessarily consciously acting on anything. And so, or like their effect is more passive than anything, or like they're operating on a higher plane. But there are incarnations of them that are essentially corrupted in the modern world, and that's the Head Collector, which is aligned with logic, Heart Collector, which is aligned with instinct, and the Soul Collector, which is aligned with psyche. And these are sort of the three main villains, sort of inspired by Ocarina of Time, in a sense. So, yeah.
The Collectors are such a chilling way to flip the script. It turns the three foundational pillars of consciousness into something predatory. I'm imagining these villains don't just want to conquer the world, but they're actually stripping away the very things that make people sentient.
It's you and me.
Which one of them do you think is the most dangerous to the people in your world?
Oh, the Head Collector by far, and the idea is that there's going to be the Valley of the Heads, and this is like a place where essentially there's these headless servants, and maybe even companions for my children, and that in a way that they're incredibly fun, maybe even lighthearted in their silliness, because they're just like, you know, they're almost comedic relief characters. And they can talk and communicate in their own way, but they are headless, you know, and they don't have logic tied to them. And that would be the reveal maybe like 5 years down the road, because it would be a much darker theme. I wouldn't want to expose them to now, where the Head Collector, they run across this Valley of the Heads, and maybe one of their, friends actually ends up needing some sort of, like, essentially one of their friends ends up needing some sort of, like finds their head, is what I meant to say. And then it's like this big moment for them. But yeah, that would obviously be a little gory. So.
That's a heavy reveal, but in a way that's really poignant. It shifts the silly companion from a mascot to a symbol of trust and loss. Since you're mindful of the gore and the age of your kids, do you see this as a physical horror or more of a surreal, conceptual kind of loss?
I see the Dune trilogies as like a good example of like kind of what I want to do, where Denis Villeneuve has been clear about the fact that he wants he wanted the first movie to be a drama, the second movie to be an action movie, and the third movie to be a thriller. And I probably want to make it like first an action movie, and maybe that's the first 3 years they're playing, and that's the Soul Collector. I want the first one to be drama, and that's the Soul Collector. And there's plenty of action, but I think it exposes them to a wide array of very like interesting types of people and ideas. And so, anyways, and then it becomes a drama and a thriller. So, yeah.
I love the way you're structuring this like a cinematic trilogy. Give the world room to evolve as they do. Starting with the Soul Collector for the drama phase feels right. It lets you establish the emotional stakes and the human connections before the tone shifts. I'm curious if the first act is about the soul and drama. What's the inciting incident that pulls your kids' characters into this conflict?
I don't know. I think that's where I need to start developing what the world I'm building actually is in like a coherent way, because I will want to create an encyclopedia around it. Sort of why I'm coming into this conversation is to start figuring that out.
That's a great place to start. If you're aiming for a full encyclopedia, we should probably nail down the ground truth of your world first. Do you want to start by mapping out the geography and how it interacts with those three gods, or would you rather dive into the history of how the collectors actually rose to power?
I don't know. That's a good idea, because I don't even know if they have risen to power. Maybe the Soul Collector, and like there's I don't know. Like there's like maybe the Soul Collector is more of someone that's defected as well, and so it could be someone that introduces them to the world too, and then reveals to them this like secret that they've been hiding. So there are multiple ways to go about this, and I think that the Head Collector for sure is rising in power, but is more like Mordor, like a slow threat. The Heart Collector would be a much more vicious threat, predatorial threat, and the Soul Collector maybe is good by default. Like there's no way for it to be corrupted, and that could be a good lesson in and of itself, but it still doesn't answer the question of like psychogeography and like what kind of world and like how I build this encyclopedia. Like, do I build one big map or a series of maps, and how do I organize these things?
For an encyclopedia, I think the organizational structure is just as important as the content. Since you mentioned you're not a huge map person, maybe you shouldn't start with like one giant static map. What if you organize the encyclopedia by thematic regions instead? Each region could be tied to one of the gods, like a landscape that feels like logic, or a place that embodies instinct. It lets you build the world in chunks and keeps that psychogeography feel, where the environment is more about the vibe and precise coordinates. Does that sound more manageable than trying to wrestle with a traditional map?
I don't know. I don't know how they're connected. That's the hard part. And so,
That's
like, I just want to make sure that they, like, feel like there's a coherent way to navigate between them. That, and I don't want to get, and like, the structure doesn't matter to me because I don't like how hand-wavy, for instance, like, Harry Potter can be, like, very hand-wavy in its magic systems, and I don't want to be too crazy strict. I want to be almost simple in a way, but the simplicity still needs to be coherent. Like, I don't need to go all Brandon Sanderson level of complexity. In fact, I think that can take away from the magic to some degree, but there's also magic in the coherence and the broad system. And when you want to dive deeper, you can. And for my kids, they will dive deeper and want to dive deeper as they get older.
I totally get that. You want a system that's robust enough to not feel arbitrary, but not so dense that it becomes impossible. Since you're leaning into the three gods and the pillars of consciousness, what if the connection between the regions isn't a physical road, but a transition of state? Like moving from the instinct region to the logic region requires a shift in how you perceive the world, or a specific mental bridge. It keeps the coherence tied to your core theme rather than just geography. Do you think that's too abstract, or does it hit that sweet spot of simple but structured?
I don't know. I feel like travel is definitely like a part of it, and so it just needs to be something that's more literal, I guess. I guess I don't understand what you mean, like how that would play itself out in the game itself.
Fair point. Let me be more literal. Think of it like a hub and spoke system. Maybe there's a central city or a neutral ground that represents the balance of all three gods, and from there, 3 distinct roads or portals lead to the 3 different realms. It's like literal travel, but the landscape changes drastically the moment you cross the border. You could have a road that's perfectly straight and geometric as you enter the logic realm, and a winding, overgrown path. It feels wild as you enter the instinct realm. That way, you have clear borders and easy navigation, but the environment still tells the story. Does that feel more grounded for a game?
Oh, would it get old with time? You know, this is supposed to last years, or is there a way to like, or like, would it be like literal 3 like worlds, and like, how would these worlds exist? Would they almost be like mega cities, or would they be like distinct worlds? Like, because there's other options of being like, hey, this is like a fully dimensional thing, where like kind of like Kingdom Hearts, where it's like every world is sort of self-contained into a single city or instance, or should it be more complicated?
If this is meant to last years, a single hub might feel a bit small after a while. I think the Kingdom Hearts approach, distinct instances or pocket worlds, actually solves your coherence problem. You can create a core set of rules for how travel works, but each new world can be a totally different experiment in psychogeography without breaking the rest of the map. It keeps it simple for the kids now. But as they get older, you can reveal that these worlds are actually connected by a deeper, more complex network. It gives you a way to introduce new themes or villains without having to redraw a giant map. Do you think they'd prefer the feeling of visiting completely different dimensions, or do you think they'd want a sense of a vast singular continent they're slowly uncovering?
I don't know, and I mean, I think one question I have to ask is if they want to be the same character every time, or if it's like more fun for a kid to like be switching characters each time, and maybe they can be reincarnations, and that can be revealed. But like, yeah,
that is a huge design choice, and it's such a great way to bake that growth you're talking about into the game. If they're reincarnations, it lets you play with the idea of inherited knowledge or trauma from a previous life, which ties perfectly back into the Soul Collector's drama. Do you think they'd enjoy the mystery of discovering who they used to be, or would you rather they build a single long-term identity?
I don't know. I think both could go over well.
Since you're not sure yet, we could actually let them decide. You could start them off with one character, and then at a natural breaking point in the story, introduce the idea of a past life or a new form. Keeps the identity flexible. If you go the reincarnation route, it also gives you an excuse to change the world they're in, like moving from the soul realm to the in-spirit realm, and transition into a new life. Does that feel like a way to keep it fresh for the long haul?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that gives you a lot of... Since we've got the broad... Exactly. We've got these 3 pillars of consciousness, the predatory collectors, and a world that's more about emotional states than coordinates. Now that we're starting to build the structure, do you want to try and sketch out a few entry point locations for that first drama act with the Soul Collector? Or maybe you'd rather talk about how exactly the reincarnation mechanic would work in the game?
Need a good starting point. I was thinking maybe a magical academy, but I need like a good first adventure for them that can really introduce them to all these systems. I think that's my main hold up right now is because they're not going to learn about these big ideas for a long time, but it needs to still, like, all my best ideas are the big ideas, so.
The big idea gap is a real challenge when you're designing for kids. You can't just drop a lecture on the nature of consciousness in session 1. The trick is to turn those big ideas into toys first. If they're at a magical academy, maybe the first adventure isn't about the soul collector, but a simple magical artifact that only works if you're feeling a certain way, or a mood room that changes based on who's in it. It lets them experience the logic of the world through gameplay before they ever have to understand the philosophy. Does that feel like a way to bridge the gap?
Maybe. I'd like some more ideas. Maybe like something a little bit more punchy and fun.
Let's get a bit more active with it. What if the first adventure is a missing person case? Maybe a favorite teacher or a fellow student disappears, and the only clue is a physical object left behind that vibrates or changes color based on whether the person was feeling logic, instinct, or psyching.
No, the logic, instinct, and psyche thing would be like buried deep. They're not old enough to understand any of that shit.
Got it. Total radio silence on the philosophy. Let's keep the why completely under wraps and just focus on the what. If we're at a magical academy, maybe the first quest is just a classic high-energy disaster. Like a magical creature gets loose in the library and they want to track it down using a weird tool that just pings when they're close. Simple, punchy, and gets them moving without any deep diving. Does that sound more like the right speed?
Alright. Need to focus on this game because this is my rank up game. I'm gonna go for Mix's Sheriff, I think. Let me see. Bro, give me your Sheriff, Mix.
Thanks.
Sweet. Alright, now I can do something. Damn it. Damn it. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, come on. High ping? Or is that me?
Spike planted.
Damn. Nice. He could have tapped it out of sight, and the ISO would have had to come up, gotten it to half, and then he probably could have followed the ISO around and hit him in the back. That's what I would have done. Alright. Okay. We haven't flanked them much yet. That's a lot of noise. Oh, that's sweet. Okay.
I know exactly where. Spike planted. Last player standing.
Out of charges.
Damn it! Ugh. This is a hard game, man. Hard game. Okay, I gotta save. So, you know what? I'm actually gonna. That's risky. But I'm gonna do it. No, not. What am I doing? Don't be an idiot, Briggs. Okay, I guess that's fine. What? Did the bulldog? The bulldog must have gotten nerfed.
Spike
That was
down, B.
crazy spray.
Enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Nice. Nice shit. Okay. Okay, am I crazy here? Let me see. No, that feels just the same. That is crazy weird. It must have been my ping. Ooh, that was pretty good. That's crazy to have one blade out. Oh, she doesn't have a
One enemy remaining.
rifle. Nice.
Spike down, A.
Nice. That's great. Good shit. Good shit. Okay, we're 2 ahead. Uphill battle, man.
Then fall near me. Can I get a drop?
Hopefully someone buys me.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh. Damn.
Last player standing. Enemy remaining. Spike down, B.
Spike is here.
What wildness was that? She's so fidgety. Crazy.
My ult's not ready. My ult's not ready. Yes. My ult's not ready. My ult's not ready. My ult's not
Hmm.
Enemy spotted B. Enemy spotted B.
Spike planted.
I know exactly where you are.
Ooh, rough. Rough business.
Once more it's not
Alright. Let's do... I'm gonna have some pop-off rounds with this. Especially if I can just get 2 kills. Or actually, I can do a Bucky with light shield. Yeah.
One enemy remaining.
Nice. One more round. One more round. That was a cool op she picked up.
Match point.
Damn it.
here.
Into the deep.
Are we gonna win it? Damn.
Here.
What does this mean? Yep.
What I missed.
One enemy remaining.
Nice shit.
Defenders win.
Alright, let's see where I got placed. I was in gold 2 last time. I don't know if I've ever gone up. Oh, I do 4 placement matches? That's crazy. Oh, I was playing against silvers? Hmm. One of my favorite Vandals ever. Ba-dum, ba-dum. That's sweet, Vandal.